we've got the numbers. We are in item 13, page 243 of the agenda, which is the annual monitoring report to the 28th of February 2019. And we have the great Tracy Musty to talk to us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So good afternoon, everyone. So this annual monitoring report represents Council's results for the 8 months ending 28th of February 2019. Council's accounting result after 8 months is a surplus of $43.8 million, which is $1.7 million favourable against a year-to-date forecasted surplus of $42.1 million. The annual accounting forecast has been updated since the last Finance Committee meeting and shows an annual forecast result of $67.6 million. This is a forecasted deficit of $8.7 million against the annual budget of $76.3 million. The key driver for this reduced forecast surplus is the deferral of capital revenue subsidies associated with the deferred capital projects. Further details of this can be found on page 247 of the agenda. Council's balancing the books result, which is the subset of the accounting result, which measures our Council's everyday revenue and is covering our everyday expenses. The updated forecast is close to break even. This result is $9.3 million favourable against Council's annual budget deficit of $9.4 million. This $9 million movement from a favourable year-to-date surplus as at February, dropping to a break-even forecast in the balancing the books result, is due to forecasted expenditure ramping up during Q4 in the areas of personnel, depreciation, operating and maintenance costs and professional costs. As in previous years, a disproportionate level of expenditure in these areas occur in the latter part of the financial year. Recent forecast adjustments relate to an increase of $2 million of fees and charges revenue, a decrease in expenditure of $2 million across our consultancies, interest revenue and fees, and operating and maintenance costs. An extra $1.3 million in personnel savings for our vacancy factor, and the deferral of costs relating to the potential demolition of founders and municipal pools, moving that out to future years. The year-end forecast will continue to be reviewed and updated by the business as information about future spend is known. And as alluded to by Chris earlier within his capital report, we will continue to identify any operating expenditure that will be a savings due to those deferred projects. There are no new emerging issues this month that staff believe will impact the year's result. In terms of our Treasury, Council remains fully compliant with our policy. Our net debt is $109 million, lower than Council's annual budget, but again this aligns with our capital forecast and the favourable revenue that we're receiving. I'll take the rest of the report as read and I'm happy to take any questions.
Tracy, just one thing, that report you just read, that doesn't get in here though, eh?
No.
Just the speaking notes.
Just makes, I mean, it would just make a lot of sense if that goes in here. And if you can get it done in time, I suppose.
It's just lifted all the information off.
It's just taking all of that and summarising it for you.
Yeah, exactly, which is why it would be good to be in here.
Yep, so it is in there.
But not like that.
No, it's, yeah. I think it's reasonable for...
I mean, you know, subject to the timing. Yeah.
So all our staff will review reports and work on their notes as a consequence after it. It's quite hard at times to actually do it beforehand, but also it's based on other information that's been made available. But I'm more than comfortable if Tracy wants to circulate that post meeting for you guys to read as well.
Okay, thank you. That's just quite a useful...
And apparently, according to the Deputy Chief Executive, some of us wing it as well.
Some of us what?
Wing it.
Nice.
You can tell those people.
Yeah. Those are easy. Okay, Rob.
I've just got a couple of questions. The first one is around that paragraph 7 where you've got the annual forecast for the accounting result. Is it fair to say that most of that $8.7 million difference at year end is the NZTA subsidy that we won't receive?
Yes.
Okay, that's about 12, isn't it? So, okay,
Yes.
so I've understood, and I think your presentation helped my understanding of that. The second question is in paragraphs 8 and 9, and as you're aware, I am quite concerned that we are Well, I'm concerned on one hand that we're showing a surplus and balancing our books when we had previously indicated quite a significant deficit. But I'm just at odds with, in paragraph 9, where you say that the majority of this favourability is not savings but related to operational maintenance and professional services work that is behind schedule. And when I go back to Chris's report, and I see Chris isn't here, but on page 230, he says under renewals and compliance program, he says this program is generally on track. Now, on one hand it's on track, but here you're saying it's behind.
So in terms of the report that Chris is writing, he's talking about capital renewals. So our capital renewals are on track. In terms of our operating expenses, if you like, there are some programs of work that are a little behind, and that's what's behind that comment in paragraph 9. I guess what we're trying to do is recognise that since the last Finance Committee we have gone through an extensive reforecasting to find out where we'll end up at in the end of the year. There's still work to do. If you remember the last Finance Committee, there was, I think we were forecasting at a deficit of $6 million. Through the work that the team have done with the business, we're now saying that we're pretty much breaking even. But there was highlighted in previous report from Chris, and Tracy's alluded to it too, is that there's consequential OPEX associated with deferring capital, and that's the stuff.
Sorry, with what capital?
Deferring capital program, so the 66 million. So there is a likelihood that there is more savings to be found in the sense of that are relating to that deferred capital.
And if I may, Councillor Rob, just remember that there's two types of maintenance. So you have your capital maintenance, which is what Chris and his team are responsible for. So your renewals, and actually that's replacing things from a capital perspective. The maintenance that I talk about in this report is more like things like your painting or something like that. So it's just maintaining the current assets that we have.
Those sort of things.
And those sorts of things.
So where is that? I thought that was what Chris was talking about this morning in terms of looking at this as a 3-year kind of cycle.
So no, he's definitely talking about his renewals and compliance program.
So that's all capital,
so
none of that's
all capital.
operational.
He definitely talks about capital type projects as opposed to the operating, painting and those kind of things that we talk about here.
Then where in these 3 reports are we kind of keeping tabs on during the year of this operational maintenance? Because this to me hinges back to looking after the assets that we have.
That's right, and that's exactly what this report does. So to
So
that
it's
point,
your report that focuses on that.
Yeah, so looking after our existing assets, like painting them or upgrading them or something like that, as long as, from an operating perspective, that'll come in my report. If it's anything bigger and it's capital related, it'll come into Chris's in the renewals and compliance section in his report.
Okay, because his report, renewals and compliance program, also talks about looking after our assets.
Yes, same thing. So we do it in 2 different ways.
Do you think there's some way that going forward we can monitor this operational, because it seems, I'm not sure how far behind we are.
So the area that we, for this report that Tracy's alluding to, if you go to the report on page 250, it talks about our statement of comprehensive revenue and expenses.
Hang on.
You'll see that there's a high level operating and maintenance cost line.
Yep.
That showing currently that we're favourable this year at 710, so that gives you an indication of either savings we've found or work yet to do. As Tracy's alluded to, the last quarter of the year is where a lot of the costs do come in terms of our work. If you want a breakdown further, each activity statement have that operating and maintenance cost line in there too, so you can compare our actual spend to our budgeted spend.
But it's not telling me, I guess if you're saying that we're only 710,000 behind now, that report suggests that we're several $1 million behind in terms of spending.
I think it's
that
just...
we're 8.7 behind in our year to, 6.6 behind in our year to date, and we'll end up being 9.3 behind our long-term budget figures. So if the favourability is caused by having less in the way of operational maintenance to date, and we're only 710,000 behind, it seems to me that we're not that far behind at all.
It's about how we're forecast for that maintenance to occur for the last quarter of the year, or 4 months of the year.
Okay.
There's also, operating maintenance is one area. Professional work in terms of projects that we would otherwise have started is included in that.
Yep.
And as I said, consequential OPEX is another area that we really need to nail down. It's one area that we have yet to finalise, so we're working on that so that we can get the annual plan sort of baseline position as right as much as possible.
I'm still struggling, though, that we've got such huge expenditure in the last 4 months compared with the earlier 8 months. But I guess if that's the reality and it'll show up when we've got the June accounts, then that's fine.
Yeah, we will bring forward more up to date. As I say, we moved our forecast through engaging with the business in terms of the operating areas of the business. Now we're trying to get down into the detail around deferred capital and see what impact that has on the number. But for the 21st of May, you'll have a baseline position of where we believe we'll end in the end of the year, as well as the 23rd of May Finance Committee, and there should be a lot more clarity on that topic.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thanks, Tracy.
And just, can I just jump in here, because I also had that highlighted. We're kind of using money as a proxy for work, as if some money's been spent, so therefore the work has been done. But of course, that's the way everyone's assuming. Okay, if you spend the money, it must be because you've done the work and you must have done it properly and all this sort of stuff. First of all, I don't think that's a good proxy at all. That's not a measurement of whether the work is done or not. But also, it simply means that we're not doing the work when we should be doing the work.
Not necessarily. It could be a combination of a couple of things. It could just be some timing due to various, as we always talk about, due to various things. I also know that there's some actual savings in these accounts as well. So, for example...
Sorry to interrupt. That's exactly it. This mixes up work that hasn't been done or work that's been done under budget, which is a good thing, whereas work that hasn't been done is a bad thing.
Correct.
So it's...
That's because it's talking to the summary result. The more details in the...
There's actually a third category as well, and there's timing to this as well, because I mean one of the things, and it's the example that Chris gave earlier that's just as relevant to the operating as it is to capital, is sometimes we assess the impact per asset management plan, we go to do the work, it's not needed, and so it could be delayed further. So $1 in the bank now is better than, and spending it and doing it.
So if something like that was material, it would come to us to put into our forecast to approve that in actual fact that building doesn't need to be repainted because it's actually doing really well.
Yep.
But lots of little things won't.
And the other reason that there's not one coherent story is that the maintenance sits in different places in the organisation. Admittedly, if it's facilities related, facilities oversee it, but there are other aspects to it as well. So there are little things in different places across the organisation. The forecast process is robust though, because it really forces the individual owner of those maintenance budgets to take account for what they've got left to spend, and have they actually done, to your point, the level of maintenance is required to maintain the life of that asset. Because that's a big difference between the operating...
Sorry, Richard, to interrupt you, but that never gets reported to us. We see the cost of work done, or the cost of work that wasn't done because it didn't need to get done, or it got done cheaper or got delayed, but we don't see any building reports saying this building, the paint's all peeling off it.
Yep, and that's an operational responsibility. You've set a service level through the 10-year plan and the asset management plans, and we're aiming to deliver on those. Yeah. And that's to make sure our buildings will achieve their useful lives. Where it does show up is our annual requirement to consider the life of our assets. And if there's any assets that have had a depletion because we haven't invested either from a renewal point of view or through an operating point of view, and that we have to reassess the life, that will come back here because it's part of, well, the Finance, Audit and Risk Committee and Council to assess that as well. Okay, so
our only measurement or visibility we get on maintenance that's not done is A, that we haven't spent the money, or B, complaints from customers, from residents.
And remember, you've also got in the activity statements as you go through for each of the different areas, usually explanations from each of the GMs or people responsible for what savings they've made or what they're not doing or what's timing and things like that. So there is a lot more detail in the activity statements as well.
And one of the key aspects of the asset management plan is weighing up the initial capital. It's a whole of life approach. So it's the initial capital investment is the asset management plan. It's the renewals investment, which extends the useful life, and it's the maintenance investment which maintains its useful life. We say it's going to be a 30-year life. If we don't maintain it, it'll be a 15-year life, so we invest in it as well. And all that stuff gets reviewed, and that's basically our Bible, but we still don't necessarily fully go to spend everything we said we're going to spend. We always do an assessment beforehand, and that will lead to some of these changes. But what I think we need to do is flag up in the activity reports, which I'm sure we do, any areas where we believe we have missed the boat in terms of the investment, in terms of maintenance, and what the impacts of that are, whether it's going to be caught up. If we need to say to council that, hey, look, you know, we've got a community hall somewhere and we don't think we should paint it because really, to be honest, it's, you know, going to make no difference in terms of its life. It's going to be running out in 5 years' time. We might make that call, but we'll let you guys know.
Because sometimes it's a service level, but also there will be, in some instances, a safety issue.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But if we are always deliberate in our decisions. It's not a, you know, oh shit, we missed it, no, let's not do it. It's, hey, we made a decision not to do it. If it's significant, you guys will know about it.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Siggy.
So much, Mr. Chair. Look, just following on actually from that, from the maintenance, I just saw on page 257 that there was that the operating and maintenance cost $119,000 favourable, and that's for building maintenance, and that just I'm just worried
What
that we're
page
not.
is it, Siggy?
257.
That's visitor attractions.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that we're not falling behind, you know, that we're not, I'm just always nervous of what has happened previously with some of our bigger buildings, that we do look after them really well, so that we don't have to pay in 10, 20 years' time for them to, because the maintenance was lacking, that we then pay the big bucks then. So you feel comfortable that we do enough, and that is just a consequence of we looking after them well, that we're actually saving some money that we've budgeted. We budgeted more. Is that how I read it, or?
This money will be spent by year end. It's just a timing
Okay.
issue, and it's a contractor availability issue.
Okay.
Just on timing, sometimes there's other things that come into it. Previous reports, the parks area has been quite favourable in operating maintenance. Council gave us more money around tree maintenance in the LTP. We had a very, very wet autumn, winter and spring last year, so we physically couldn't get large machines and cranes on the ground where we needed to remove trees. So that work ended up being a lot later than what we forecast in the budget. So that's why the expenditure sort of came in after Christmas rather than before Christmas. So sometimes there's those sort of
Just the
climatic
timing
things that
thing.
come into it
Okay.
too.
Thank you so much. That's lovely. Thank you.
Ryan.
Continuing the exact point, if I may, through you, Chair, to Lance, is that delay in the museum or behind forecast, does that tidy up? There's some leaks, I understood, that were in the roof there? Is there some of that funds?
That was in Chris's report around the replacement of the roof. The museum's an interesting building, as Emily's team will attest to. It's got a lot of internal gutters and things like that.
Right.
It was architecturally designed, so we've had to go back and just look at the whole design of the museum to make sure that we get the renewal right, so that we don't end up with the same issue in 10 or 15 years' time, so that it actually lasts longer. So it's taken a little bit longer than what we thought. That's why we're having to defer a bit of that capital. And trouble is, if you get into the winter period, it's not the greatest time to remove a roof in a museum when you've got millions of dollars worth of taonga sitting in galleries and other places. So unfortunately, that's what's happened, but we're confident that next year we'll knock it off and get it done properly.
Okay, so potentially we might have a vulnerable winter through some of that?
No, we've got that under control with some temporary measures, but obviously, you know, we don't want to carry that on for too long and that sort of thing. So I'm confident that we'll sort it out next spring.
Cool, thank you. On page 247, Tracy, apologies if I missed this in your presentation. In that big NZTA third paragraph down, it talks about the capital programs which are being deferred to attract that, well, that 13.1 million, which is getting deferred to attract this. Is it getting deferred to attract the subsidy, or is the deferral beyond us?
No, so they've been deferred, but those particular projects have the subsidy. So obviously, if we're deferring them, we've budgeted to put that into the revenue, and I'm not going to receive that revenue. So because they're deferred, I have to take the revenue out, and we'll obviously, once they get done and done next year, we'll receive the revenue that goes with them next year.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
So
so
that's-
it attracts the subsidy in the sense that those particular projects have subsidies. So it's kind of a joint. So if I take them out of capital, I have to take them out of the revenue, and they kind of go together. So if I'm putting them back into next year or the year after, I'll have to put back in the revenue next year and the year after as well.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Thank you. Also, page 276, where it talks about the second graph, rates annual forecast is 570K favourable due to expected growth. But given that we're this is 8 months of the financial year with only 4 months to go, are we likely to achieve that rates growth target?
So we already have. So that came about when we set the rates at the beginning of the year and we did the calculations. So when we do the budget, and that's exactly what the team are working on at the moment, they have to anticipate how much growth that we will have as at the 30th of June to determine what rates revenue we will get when we actually go. So that's part of the annual plan. So remembering if I do it to this year, we're doing that in May, on the 21st of May, around the May. The rates team have got all the way up to as close as we can till June to obviously determine how many properties will rate and things like that. Between those 2 periods of time, we normally learn a bit more and there might be some more growth in the city. So what this represented was we found a little bit more growth in the city, so we were able to rate for that and collect the revenue. So that's kind of already done. You only get to do it once a year. So
that forecast is accurate for the remaining 4 months?
yes.
Cool, thank you.
Okay. Tracy, on page 246, paragraph 28, talks about vested assets revenue
Yes.
and the timing and recognition of vested assets relies on being aware of when the S224C clearance of title is issued. We issue those. The Hamilton City Council issues those titles, don't we?
Yes, we do.
So,
Once they've been applied for.
Once they've been applied for.
yeah, okay, yep, that's right. And at that time, so why is there a problem about being aware of it? The department that issues it to whatever that is would immediately invoice the customer, whoever that
Yes.
is, and alert you.
Yes, but then step back one more step from that. So it's when do they get to the department downstairs? That's the bit that we have limited visibility on. So it's when they come in to be applied for.
Yeah.
We have no control, and at the moment there's not a tunnel of vision to sort of see a timing of when all these things came through. So you're exactly right. That's how I know what the vested revenue and vested assets will be, is because the team downstairs provides us with that information. But it's the one step back from that. I can't kind of go out and say this is what's coming up in these
Okay.
future months.
Is there there's no incentive for a person is there an incentive for a person not to apply for one of those?
Do you know, I think it'd be very rare for someone not to get their 224. Yeah, I mean there is
it
a
like
few, but
self-policing
it's
mechanism
yeah,
where
yeah,
they wouldn't be able to get insurance,
exactly.
they wouldn't be able to get a bank loan, is that right?
They couldn't sell their
They
property.
couldn't sell their property, so there'd be a lot of reasons, to get it. But some people might not need it for whatever reason. So it's not a given, 100% given. But the majority of people would get them.
So the incentives for getting that certificate are that your bank will back you, your insurance company will give you insurance,
You can sell the house.
but you have to pay some significant money to us. So there is an incentive not to apply for it too, isn't there?
Yep, so the challenge is if they haven't built the asset to the required standard, they may withhold off the 224C until such time as they've achieved that, i.e. the road or the water, but in hindsight, until they give it to us, they're responsible for looking after it as well. So if something goes wrong, it's their responsibility. So I think the general goal is to get their 224Cs as soon as they can, start yielding some returns, but also delivering on the need for us to take responsibility for the maintenance of the asset.
Okay. So have we found a whole lot of people who haven't applied for their S224C? That hasn't
No.
ever happened? Okay. All right, thank you. All right. Just a receiving, is it? Okay, I'll move that we receive the report. We have a seconder, Ryan, so Mel at Hamilton. Is there any debate? No debate. Those for, please say aye. Those against, no. Anyone, no? Passed unanimously. Thank you. Okay, we're now on to our last report before we do something else. In the open, yeah. Which is the Financial Strategy Report, page 279, item 14.
Mangai Bella. I am Christy Harger and I recently joined the Council as Corporate Business Manager. I'm presenting the fourth Financial Strategy Monitoring Report to you today. The report follows the same format as our last report. It is the last of 3 monitoring reports and provides a summary view of the key points raised in the previous 2 monitoring reports. This structure enables all the individual teams to be considered in the light, items to be considered in the light of the 10-year plan financial strategy limits. Just to call your attention to page 281, significant forecast adjustments. If you turn to that page, you'll see the financial impact of each adjustment on balancing the books, debt to revenue and net debt. In paragraph 26, under insurance increase, there's an error where the debt to revenue percentage should be in brackets. So
Kirsty, we're now on page 283, are we?
yes,
Yep.
paragraph
And
26.
unfortunately, the heading has
been
dropped off on
dropped.
the, so
Yep.
it's the first box
It's the
on
first.
page, it's the top box on page 283.
In the middle.
And in the middle, yep. So that's one adjustment that's happened since printing. So,
Yep.
correct. So the budget adjustments, which are these tables, are against the 10-year plan and include deferring demolition costs for the municipal pools and Founders Theatre. Other adjustments are following for cost changes that we now have more accurate information since the 10-year plan was set. These are all items that have been raised in previous council meetings and in the capital and annual monitoring reports that you've heard today. The changes have been reflected in the financial strategy graphs, and council's updated position remains within the debt to revenue ratio limit of 230%. Debt capacity in 2020-2021 is 40 million. Deferral of capital projects into future years.
Sorry,
Yep.
debt capacity is what? At 2020?
In 2020 and 2021, so year 4,
Yep.
the debt capacity is 40 million, so that's our tightest.
So that's the gap between the bar.
The maximum that we
Yeah,
can
yeah.
reach and what we're predicting at this stage based on our 10-year plan.
However, that is not on the graph, that figure is not on the graph, is it?
Just the percentages of
No.
218.
Yeah, so
It
you're-
shows
you're
the
just sort
same
of-
story,
you're just
but
filling
I
that in.
have
Yeah, okay.
extra information that's
Yeah.
providing. So deferral of capital projects into future years has had a positive impact on the council's financial strategy limits. In the February report from the Office of the Auditor General, there was a caution around debt levels, particularly for councils in a period of high growth. While our current debt to revenue limit is 230%, it is recommended that any spare capacity is aligned against debt. Council is forecasting to largely balance the books in year 2, 2019-20, with a small forecast deficit decrease in year 1, 2018-19. The information contained in the financial strategy graphs adopted today will form the base for preparation of the 2019-20 draft annual plan, which will be discussed at the 21st of May 2019 council meeting. I'll take the report as read and happy to take questions.
Kirsty, so page 281, paragraph 23, I think I understand this, gives us a description of all the forecast adjustments since, which includes decisions made by council on the 14th of March.
Correct, yeah.
And those are replicated in these
Tables.
tables you gave us, and also in the grids or boxes, or whatever you want to call them, on page 282, 283, is that right?
Correct, yes.
So, at the top of my head, the decision to increase the wages for the cleaners is not reported here?
So,
No, because we haven't had time to do it. Pardon?
That was just the other day, so
Yep.
that'll be in the
Yep. So-
21st of May.
Yep.
Okay. Are there any other decisions that council has made that,
that's not in here.
yeah,
So the timing of this report, when it was finalised, this includes everything that was decided up until the 14th of March council meeting, and anything that has changed since then will fall into the annual plan meeting on the 21st.
Okay. Do we know of things that have been made since then, but you just haven't had time to
So
forecast?
the 4th of April council meeting had several financial items in it and several financial
So
decisions.
one was the cleanest thing, what was the?
Yep,
The other things were things like continuing the parking, but they were already baked in, weren't they? Is that right?
Yes, so the outcome of
Yeah.
that,
And
while it was
eyesight is
still,
already baked in. I'm just trying to think of the things that were discussed at that.
there were changes to eyesight that we will factor in, but there was a base already, so it's an adjustment to the
Okay,
base of the eyesight. And there were DCs, there were several,
Oh, the DCs thing, that's
Different
right, the CBD
items.
DCs, that's right.
Yep.
So that was a change, wasn't it?
yes, it was.
Okay, so that's to come yet.
So we get, for our process, we get a list of all of those, and we work through them to make sure that they flow through to the set of 3 reports,
Okay.
and it will also be incorporated into the annual plan for,
So we'll get visibility of that at the next finance committee meeting.
we'll get it.
So what we agreed was we'd, rather than duplicate the financial strategy monitoring report at the finance committee, we'll
Yeah.
bring it all to the
Oh, that
council meeting on the
council meeting.
21st of May.
Okay. Normally you would do that.
Normally you would, yes.
But because it's an annual plan, yeah. Okay, thank you. Ryan?
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Christy, for your report. Just in, was emerging issues, I think 287. Enlighten me why depreciation is a scary, big emerging issue? Isn't that kind of business as usual?
It is business as usual. The movements of the capital program that are signed off today, we need to flush that through to understand the impact on depreciation. So emerging issues is supposed to be all topics that we know need to be updated before the 21st of May. So it's not, emerging issues isn't just the scary ones, it's just the topical ones. So depreciation it will need to be updated to take into account capital portfolio movements.
Do you have any ballpark what you think that figure might look like?
I don't think it's going to be significant. We just need to get it right.
Yeah, thank you.
Bella?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your report. Just a question on page 280, there's significant forecasting assumptions. Paragraph 18, you've got interest on borrowing forecast to be 4.85%, reducing to 4.6%. Is that taken into account the changing prediction of OCR potentially being reduced, blah, blah, blah?
It will, but fundamentally, the majority of our interest costs are locked in in terms of our
Okay.
swaps, so it won't change significantly, but we
Right.
will update it before the annual plan.
Okay, thank you.
Okie dokie, do we have any more questions? All right, I'll move the report, I'll move the staff recommendation. Do I have a seconder? Mallet, Casson, open for debate. Is no debate. We'll go to the vote. Those in favour, please say aye. Those against, nay. Is there any noes? Carried unanimously, thank you. Thank you very much. We're now, I need to move to exclude the public. Can I have a seconder? Along with the councillors. Okay, we're moving Mallet Casson to move into public excluded. Those in favour, please say aye. Those against, no. Any noes? Carried unanimously. Yep.